Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Colonel Mark L. Jacks, 29th Hospital Center Commander, welcome today to the 218th Medical Detachment Veterinary Service Support Inactivation Ceremony. On the field before you are soldiers representing the structure and employment of the MDVSS, the headquarters element, the veterinary medicine and surgical team, the food procurement and laboratory team, and 5 veterinary service support teams. The MDVSS provides equipment and personnel to conduct dispersed Veterinary Role 1 and Veterinary Role 2 medical and resuscitative surgical care. Veterinary Role 3 medical care consisting of comprehensive canine veterinary medical surgical care and evacuation hospitalization support for military working dogs. Endemic zoonotic and foreign animal disease epidemiology surveillance and control, animal facility and kennel inspections, commercial food source audits for DoD procurement, food protection, quality assurance, and sanitation inspections, food defense vulnerability assessments, food and water risk assessments, field confirmatory and presumptive microbiological and chemical laboratory diagnostic of food and bottled water, and veterinary support to operations characterized by a preponderance of stability tasks and to defense support to civil authorities' activities. Today's ceremony is a reflection of procedures practiced since the birth of our Army in 1775. The presence of the band represents the significant role martial music has played throughout history by instilling pride, loyalty, and courage in armies before battle. The formation of troops centered by our national flag represents the unified purpose of our Army and its willingness to make the ultimate sacrifice in the defense of our nation. Next to our national flag are our unit colors. This closeness to the national flag symbolizes the trust placed in us by our nation. Before the unit is the detachment guidon, which is a symbol of pride, tradition, and history. Unit guidons still serve to mark the location of an organization's headquarters and its commander. When a unit's guidon is removed from the headquarters, such as for today's ceremony, it remains under guard. This is more than tradition. It is solemn recognition and devotion to the sacrifice and gallantry of all who have ever served under that guidon. The task of guarding the guidon is honor given to only the finest of soldiers. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to recognize our distinguished guests for today's ceremony. Please hold your applause until the end. Brigadier General William Ryan III, Deputy Commanding General, 1st Corps. Colonel Jason Affolter and Sergeant Major Edgar Zavala, 593rd ESC Deputy Commander. Colonel Jonathan Craig Taylor and Command Sergeant Major Albert Harris, Madigan Army Medical Center Command Team. Colonel Heath and Mrs. Heath and Command Sergeant Major Gonzalez, 62nd Medical Brigade Command Team. Colonel Jacks and Command Sergeant Major Franco, 29th Hospital Center Command Team. Finally, we would like to welcome the soldiers, friends, and families of the 29th Hospital Center and 62nd Medical Brigade who are in attendance today, as well as those who are joining us virtually. Please give a round of applause for all of our guests. The reviewing officer for today's ceremony is the commander of the 29th Hospital Center, Colonel Mark L. Jacks. The host officer for today's ceremony is the commander of the 218th Medical Detachment Veterinary Service Support, Lieutenant Colonel Catherine A. Belleal. The commander of troops for today's ceremony is the 218th Medical Detachment Executive Officer, Captain Sean J. Ogden. The detachment sergeant for today's ceremony is Master Sergeant Nathan D. Hunsaker. Music today is provided by the America's 1st Corps Brass Quintet Band, the heartbeat of America's Corps. The band is directed by Staff Sergeant Daniel Windsor. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival of the official party, the invocation by 29th Hospital Center Chaplain Jason Seaman, and remain standing for the national anthem sung by Specialist Sable McKenzie.
Let us pray. Almighty God, as we gather here this afternoon, our hearts are filled with a true sense of humility and gratitude for the devoted and sacrificial service of the men and women who have served under the guidon of the 218th Medical Detachment Veterinary Service Support throughout its long and rich history. Thank you for the grace and strength you gave them to successfully accomplish the countless missions given them throughout many campaigns and in numerous countries. Thank you for the unyielding love and support of family and friends, which saw them through some of the best and worst moments of their careers. As the unit colors are cased and the 218th is inactivated, may your divine grace and presence be with each and every member of this detachment, both past and present. Ask now that your blessing would be upon this ceremony and upon all that is said and done. May it bring you, this formation, and the United States honor. In your name I pray. Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets break clear, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The 218th Medical Detachment, originally activated on 20 March 1944 as the 218th Malaria Survey Unit at Camp Grant, Illinois. It was reorganized and redesignated on 5 August 1944 as the 218th Survey Detachment. It was inactivated on 28 February 1946 in Japan after earning its first campaign participation credit for service in Leyte, Philippines during World War II. In 1951, the unit activated in Korea as the 218th Shock Detachment and was inactivated there in 1953. The unit earned its second campaign participation credit for service in the Korean War, including the UN Summer through Fall Offensive, Second Korean Winter, Korea Summer through Fall 1952, and Third Korean Winter. The detachment reactivated at Fort Hood, Texas on 25 August 1971 as an air crash rescue unit and inactivated there on 20 December 1975. The unit activated in Korea on 16 February 1987 as a dispensary and served there until it was inactivated on 15 October 1993. On 16 October 2005, the 218th Medical Detachment reactivated as a Veterinary Services Detachment. Just 2 months later, on 11 December 2005, the detachment deployed in the support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, earning its third campaign credit. The detachment's area of operation encompassed Kuwait, Qatar, and Djibouti, but the unit's support effort also included Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, United Arab Emirates, the Horn of Africa, the earthquake relief effort in Pakistan, and the non-combatant evacuation operation in Lebanon and Cyprus. The detachment redeployed in December 2006 to Fort Lewis, Washington. In July 2008, the 218th Medical Detachment deployed to the same area of operations in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. The detachment served a 15-month tour, redeploying in October 2009. On September 2010, the 218th Medical Detachment deployed again to Iraq in support of Operation New Dawn. Elements of the detachment were geographically dispersed across 7 operating bases, providing veterinary service support for the entire Iraq theater. The detachment was awarded the Meritorious Unit Commendation for superior performance in delivering health service support. The unit redeployed to Joint Base Lewis McChord on 14 September 2011. The 218th Medical Detachment most recently deployed to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom from 3 March to 16 November 2013. Elements of the detachment were geographically dispersed across 24 operating bases and provided veterinary service support for the entire Afghanistan theater. Please direct your attention to the center of the field. Permanent Orders 130-05. The following unit action is directed. Unit Inactivation assigned to Headquarters United States Army Forces Command. Effective date 15 October 2022. Authority Army Regulation 220-5 and Army Regulation 71-32. Signed Roger M. Bobber, Force Management Division, Headquarters United States Army Forces Command. Ladies and gentlemen, the commanding officer of 29th Hospital Center, Colonel Jacks.
Brigadier General Ryan, Colonel Affolter, Sergeant Major Zavala, Colonel and Mrs. Heath, Command Sergeant Major Gonzalez, Colonel Taylor, Command Sergeant Major Franco, distinguished guests, family and friends, both here in person and online, and most importantly, soldiers of the 218th, welcome. And thank you all for your attendance at today's inactivation ceremony. The Department of Defense, the United States Army, 1st Corps, 593rd Expeditionary Sustainment Command, 62nd Medical Brigade, and the 29th Hospital Center have been privileged to be supported by the 218th Medical Detachment Veterinary Service Support since October 16, 2005. It is with tremendous gratitude and great pride that I stand before you today as we inactivate this superb unit. For those of you who may not be aware, allow me some time to discuss the capabilities of a Medical Detachment Veterinary Service Support, or VetDet, first in general, and then with some more specific accomplishments achieved by the team standing before you today. The detachment supports joint forces in the execution of the Army's function as a sole provider of veterinary services to the Department of Defense. To achieve this, the detachment is composed of a headquarters section, 5 veterinary service support teams, a veterinary medical and surgical team, and a food procurement and laboratory team. In major combat operations, the VetDet provides 1 or more vet service support teams for early entry capability, providing medical and surgical care to military and contract working dogs, and supporting initial food inspection requirements. Generally, DET support is allocated at 1 detachment per 60,000 personnel supported, or 1 detachment per 300 military working dogs. Each of the 5 vet service support teams within the detachment can support up to 50 working dogs with Role 1 and 2 care, while the veterinary medical and surgical team can support up to 10 working dogs with Role 1, 2, or 3 care. The food procurement and laboratory team allocation is also 1 team per 60,000 personnel supported, and it is utilized for field confirmatory microbiological and presumptive chemical laboratory testing analysis of food and bottled water. Just from those sentences, it's easy to see the necessity of what this unit brings to the fight. The value and importance of this unit's capabilities to the Army and the DoD cannot be overstated. Now, let me speak specifically about the 218th, the Viper Vets, the unit standing before you today, and about some of the contributions they have made to First Corps, the Army, and the DoD. Since 16 October 2005, the unit has deployed to CENTCOM AOR 4 times, and they have assumed the DSURF mission on a 3-year rotational basis. When not deployed to a theater of operations or supporting DSURF, the unit has continually trained for their next potential mission. In doing so, the 218th has maintained the highest level of readiness, even despite the recent challenges of the COVID pandemic operating environment. This was achieved through the accomplishment of full-scale surgical exercises, establishment of a veterinary field hospital, facilitating field standard general anesthetic procedures, and performing surgeries on numerous canine patients. Additionally, the 218th has developed and maintained a close relationship with the veterinarians of the Public Health Activity Fort Lewis, combining efforts to train TDA soldiers on MTO tasks and allowing our MTO soldiers time to work in the veterinary clinics and commissaries to maintain their MOS proficiencies. Through this relationship, soldiers of the 218th have supported the garrison in everything ranging from agricultural container inspections for deploying units to teaching public health concepts as related to pets and pregnancy to participants of the P3T program. All of this ensured that the 218th was always ready to answer the nation's call at any time. Under the leadership of Lieutenant Colonel Belisle and Master Sergeant Hunsaker, the 218th has successfully and expertly executed seemingly countless training and operational missions. Please allow me to share a few of them with you. In September 2020, the 218th deployed to the field and established a Role 2 veterinary field hospital where they conducted 7 canine surgeries. This was important because it was the first major training exercise for the 218th following a significant operational pause which resulted from COVID pandemic restrictions. The team performed flawlessly and they were off and running operationally at that point. In January 2021, the 218th provided support to the United States presidential inauguration. 2 veterinary corps officers and 2 animal care technicians worked to develop a novel point of injury care system, which will be utilized in all future presidential inaugurations. This system was utilized as a safety structure for over 100 working animals and the treatment of 14 military working dogs from all branches of the military, Secret Service, and Park Service during the inauguration event. From August 2021 to January 2022, the unit played a critical role in Vet Trauma, which stands for the U.S. Army Veterinary Trauma Readiness and Operational Medicine Agility. This is the Surgeon General's military-civilian pilot veterinary medical training program. The 218th was the unit that developed the framework for the initial Vet Corps officers to complete over 800 hours of vet trauma training, treating 520 patients and validating 164 critical skills that were not trainable within the current Army veterinary medicine structure. The impacts of this program are far-reaching, augmenting veterinary operational capabilities and readiness across the entire AMED. Finally, in October 2021, the 218th supported Operation Dire Wolf as they deployed a team of 8 in order to maintain readiness through a real-world veterinary mission. Through this mission, the team provided veterinary services to the underserved military community stationed at U.S. Coast Guard Base, Kodiak, Alaska. The team expanded their surgical, medical, and food inspection skills. They performed over 50 privately owned animal vaccinations and wellness exams, conducted multiple food inspections, and executed 6 surgeries using the essential field skill of total intravenous anesthesia. The 218th has certainly been very busy, and they should be commended. When the word came that it was time for the unit to inactivate, this mission was approached with the same professionalism and precision of execution as all previous missions. In less than 9 months, Lieutenant Colonel Belisle and Master Sergeant Hunsaker transitioned the unit from a fully ready posture to inactivation, successfully divesting of 700 pieces of equipment worth more than $8 million, but more importantly, reassigning over 50 soldiers. Their leadership and care for their soldiers were key to the successful execution of this inactivation, I want to take this opportunity to personally thank them both for their hard work and dedication. While we are certainly sad to see the 218th leave our formation, today we celebrate their accomplishments and extend our gratitude for a job well done and their service to our nation. Viper Vets, Pacific Guardians.
Ladies and gentlemen, the former commander of 218th Medical Detachment, Veterinary Service Support, Lieutenant Colonel Catherine A. Bilio.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Colonel Mark Jacks and the 29th Hospital Center, I have the honor of being the last to speak to you today. I'd like to take one final opportunity as the former and last commander of the 218th Medical Detachment Veterinary Service Support to say welcome and thank you to our distinguished guests. Brigadier General Ryan, Colonel Taylor and Command Sergeant Major Harris, Colonel Affolter and Sergeant Major Zavala, Colonel Heath and Command Sergeant Major Gonzalez, to Master Sergeant Hunsaker's wife, First Sergeant Jessica Hunsaker, here today with Lieutenant Colonel Fallness, together representing the command team for the Public Health Activity Fort Lewis. My mom, Joanne Belil, and my brother, Robert Belil, who are here today from Michigan. Thank you for always being there for me. I love you guys. Very quickly, tuning in on Facebook, we have Colonel Robin Burke and Colonel Retired Brian Ketzenberger, 64 Charlies. Friends and families of the 218th Veterinary Corps, and especially all of, again, the 64 Charlies out there. Not to say welcome, but to take this opportunity to say thank you to Colonel Jackson, Command Sergeant Major Franco. Even though you're part of the ceremony, I wanted to thank you both and the 29th Hospital Center staff and soldiers for all of your continuous support and getting us to this point. Last but not least, the soldiers of the 218th, both on the field and those who have already moved on to their next positions. This ceremony is about you. You've already heard about the history, lineage, and undeniably outstanding accomplishments of the 218th as a unit, but the unit is made up of soldiers, of people, and that's what I want to talk about today is the 218th Inactivates. I've done a lot of thinking about what to say and how to express what the people of this unit have meant to me and to each other. I'd like to share some of the highlights and hopefully fun stories of the past 2.5 years, and then do some bragging about the soldiers of the 218th. First of all, this is a group of super resilient people. We all made it through the challenges of the COVID pandemic together. I first came to Washington TDY from Hawaii in March of 2020 for the veterinary DISCA course. That was the first time I got to meet the unit. The very first cases of COVID were being reported here in Washington, and we were all wondering if this was going to be a big thing or not. Fast forward to June 2020, and I missed the scheduled date for my own change of command. I wasn't allowed to PCS from Hawaii due to COVID. But I finally got here, and we did a record time fast change of command inventory, the actual change of command, and then we had to figure out how to work in this new environment together. We didn't take long to get back to the business, more or less as usual, and prepared to go to the field for our fall Surgex in September 2020. We decided to go big, and we set up the Roll 3 Veterinary Hospital to conduct live canine patient surgeries. We did 7 successful surgeries, even if one of the dogs had a little extra post-anesthesia exercise. Having live patients in a field environment, I had one request, other than the obvious, good surgical outcomes, and that was for no loose dogs. If any past commanders of the 218th are watching this, there's no particular reason why that request came up. One of our patients may have had a short bid for freedom, and I learned that Master Sergeant Kirsting and Major Shin are 2 of the fastest soldiers I've ever met, possibly in the Army. As if that wasn't enough excitement, the food procurement team and laboratory team set up the full food lab, and we found E. coli in our hand washing stations. And we all got to experience wildfire season in Washington State while living in a tent for 10 days. Then in October of 2020, we received our first notification of the unit's inactivation. It was right before Readiness Day, back when we were still only allowed to gather in squad-sized groups. Master Sergeant Kirsting and I decided to drive around to each team's location and give everyone the news. I still remember how affected everyone was, even the newest soldier in the unit. It was just past my first 90 days in command, and I had not decided on a new unit symbol or an image for our coin. This made me choose the Ouroboros for our new symbol for a few significant reasons. Not only is the Ouroboros a snake, which the unit was and is very attached to, Viper Bets, but I felt like everyone needed to be reminded that this wasn't going to be the end, just a change. The Ouroboros is often interpreted as a symbol for eternal cyclic renewal, or the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The Ouroboros expresses the unity of all things which never disappear but perpetually change. I wanted everyone to know that this wasn't the end for us, just a change. Every single soldier would continue with their Army careers, and we would work it out together. We were still on DSURF, and our next mission was for our North, with the veterinarians of the National Capital Region to provide care for 14 working dogs and over 100 horses during the 59th presidential inauguration. We sent a team of 4 to Washington, D.C. in December for the January 2021 inauguration, which turned out to be an unprecedented and volatile event. The team got out of their quarantine, their 2-week quarantine, a couple of days early due to the situation, and they instituted the novel point of injury care model that is applicable to all future large-scale working animal scenarios. I heard the success of this model hinges on the use of the tactical golf cart. Next came the COVAX mission. With DoD assets running mass vaccination sites across the country, soldiers were being mobilized and they needed to eat. And making sure the troops have safe and wholesome food is definitely a time to call on the Veterinary Corps. This was a major food mission for us that involved all of our officers, our food safety officer, and the majority of our 68 Romeos, food safety specialists. These catering facility audits were somewhere between an initial food audit and a food and water risk assessment, and involved walkthroughs, guidance, and education for the facilities in sending food samples back to the food lab at Fort Sam Houston. Teams of 2, with up to 4 teams out at a time, were continually rotating back and forth between JBLM across the United States to complete 38 audits over 12 states from March to April 2021. The day the first teams flew out from SeaTac, I got an early morning call that one of our VCOs was sick. And so, of course, the right thing to do was not fly during COVID. That VCO, thankfully, eventually tested negative for COVID, but that meant that another officer got the 6 a.m. call from me that said, "So what are you doing tomorrow morning?" The 68 Romeo for that team went on to Florida that day by himself, and the second officer joined him the next day, and they got the job done. I think those 2 soldiers may have had a great Florida vacation while it was still winter here in the Pacific Northwest. We've conducted way too many missions and exercises for me to even briefly talk about all of them, but the last one I want to mention is the Vet Trauma, the U.S. Army Veterinary Trauma, Readiness and Operational Medical Agility. We were the beta testing site for the OTSG's MILCIV Pilot Veterinary Medical Training Program. Our 4 VCO captains and our 64 Foxtrot Veterinary Internal Medicine Specialist laid the foundation for an Army-wide program to augment veterinary emergency medicine and critical care skills. They were integrated into and worked 12-hour shifts at the Lakewood Blue Pearl. We visited each of the veterinarians while they were at the Blue Pearl and had the opportunity to take the battalion and brigade command teams as well. It was a great opportunity to show them the high-level specialized care that is available in veterinary medicine. The most memorable part for me was the smiles on the faces of the VCOs as they were allowed to be immersed into their specialties. And then, of course, the fact that the Blue Pearl wanted to hire all of them. Right around that same time that we were doing the vet trauma rotations, it was time for our detachment sergeant to PCS and for us to get our 4th detachment sergeant of my command. At least we saved the best for last. I heard a rumor that our new sergeant was coming from Germany, that he was married to another first sergeant, and that their name was something with an H. I couldn't let today go by without saying a very special thank you to Master Sergeant Hunsaker. We first worked together back in the day at Schofield Barracks Veterinary Treatment Facility as part of the Pacific Regional Veterinary Command. It's a small Army and an even smaller veterinary corps, and a great day when you get to work with the best of the VC for a second time. Lastly, I want to brag about some of the accomplishments of the soldiers of the 218th. We've had 3 soldiers selected to attend recruiting school, 1 earning a spot on the commandant's list, 1 to warrant officer candidate school, 1 to green to gold, 1 to West Point, 2 to long-term health education training, go Bravos, 2 earning nominations to the Order of Military Medical Merit, a soldier earning the 593rd NCO of the Year, soldiers earning Commander's List, Commandant's List, and Distinguished Leader at ALC multiple distinguished honor graduates, and just last week, one soldier earning the EFMB, and 2 officers from the unit going on to take company commands. In this last AIM cycle, the Veterinary Co offered 3 company commands for the very first time, and we took 2 out of the 3 of them. I can't even express how proud I am of all of you and what a journey this has been for us together. The unit isn't activating, but you will all go on and do great things both in and out of the Army. I'll leave you with a few quotes from one of my favorite authors, J.R.R. Tolkien. Courage is found in unlikely places. So comes snow after fire, and even dragons have their endings. It's not the strength of the body that counts, but the strength of the spirit. There is more in you of good than you know, and the greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Viper 6, signing off for the last time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the playing of the First Corps and Army song. The words can be found in your program. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the commander, 29th Hospital Center, and the 218th Medical Detachment, we wish to thank you for your attendance at today's ceremony. Colonel Jax and Lieutenant Colonel Belil would like you to join them at the Sasquatch Saloon for a social. Have a wonderful day.